What should we do today? How about we hire some air talent? Hey Buckaroos, welcome back to Musicom Academy. Today we're going to hire some air talent. Now this is the way I like to hire air talent, and there's a lot to go into this, and especially hiring in general. And I did this lesson 2 or 3 times, and it was really long because I was trying to do all kinds of stuff for hiring. And what I decided to do is maybe cut that up, and I'll do the other stuff later. It's the typical stuff that you hear, like, checking references. Today I'm just going to go specifically into hiring air talent, just air talent alone. Again, in other lessons, I'll go through the others, because there's a lot of, even just in checking references, and just to give you an idea, even that can be, a minefield, because a lot of times if you try to check a reference or something with a boss if somebody had, they're not going to tell you anything because they can get in legal trouble by saying something bad about them. So you have to dig for it in totally different ways, which I'll go into. I mean, that's like an art in itself. So air talent, first and foremost, they have to be good on the air. I mean, that goes without saying. All the rest really is pretty minor to a large extent. Let me tell you something that Valerie Geller told me once. We had her in for a session with talk show hosts, and from a bunch of, in a chain from a bunch of our stations. And she did what she normally does, which is an amazing, really great, I think she did like an hour and a half work session with them. But one of the things she threw out for them to think about when they're on the air, to be way more interesting and not be boring and all the stuff that Valerie tries to teach. I thought, man, this is fantastic for hiring people, and you should pretty much keep this in mind. And this is what Valerie said. Would you want to be stuck in a car with someone you're hiring on a 5-hour drive? Would they be boring or not fun to be with? What's your impression of them? The other side of that would they be awesome to be with? That'd be a whole different thing. So, I bear that in mind, because if they're going to be boring on a 5-hour drive, probably high odds they're going to be boring on the radio too, I would think. So the other thing is, what are you looking for? Okay, so here's what I would look for. Is their voice good? Many times, unfortunately, that's a deal breaker right there. No matter how much they want to be in the business, their voice is bad. I look for a reasonably professional command of their voice and inflection and speaking and what to do on the radio. And a lot of that is, when I say command of their voice, do they know when to, do they talk in just one sort of cadence, one sort of set of loudness, one sort of pace, one sort of the same type of thing? Or do they move it around? Do they get soft at times? Do they stretch out their words at times? Do they pick it up and punch at times? Do they know when to do that in the right time? Particularly over intros or talking, through music, or just something. If something needs to be sounding excited, do they sound excited? If something needs to be, sounding like it's, sad, or trying to think some words that would bring you down, can they do that? Talking over or around a slow love song, that's one kind of presentation. If you're up on something that's just cranking, you want to have a different type of presentation. Can they do that? I look for that big time, because usually if they can, they tend to be just better jocks than other people, because it's one more piece of the arsenal. In addition to what you say, it's how you say it. That's a big thing. Next thing is, and this is a tough one, intellect. In their air checks or during their show, do you hear any references or sentences or wording that lets you know that they're smart and they have a lot of knowledge of different things? Things that would fit your radio station, when they're on the air. I had a morning team. Actually, I had many morning teams that would do this. They were voracious readers. They would read constantly. And they'd go in and they'd have stuff set up for their show. In other words, they have preparation. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this. This is going to be at 7:10. This is going to be at 7:45, that kind of stuff. But things would come up where they'd move out of what they were going to talk about, or they would add to it, and they'd start riffing. But they're riffing from all the things that they've read. In other words, they're prepared to do that because it's sitting in their head. They just need an excuse to let it pop out. So If somebody that doesn't have knowledge of things, or they don't read very much, or they're not, curious, that's another one which will come up in a second, it makes it harder for somebody to be, I think, a really good, interesting jock. There's no substitute, bottom line, for having smart people on the air. The smarter the better. It makes your job so much easier. For one, you don't have to tell somebody the same thing over and over and over again until they get it. They'll get it the first time, maybe the second time, and then they're off and running. And usually they will actually improve on whatever you ask them to do because they're smart enough to do that. I had a hard time trying to figure out how to explain this, and years ago, but now there's something easy really to point to. And what it is cultural awareness, being aware of the culture and history and everything around you, which also goes into the reading thing I just was talking about. But here's a great example of this. It's the words that come out of everyone's mouth if you're watching Ted Lasso, the Apple TV show.
Yeah, I got you.
It's like Dukes of Hazzards. Y'all probably call it the Earls of Risk over here.
I've had it with your mind games and your stupid gifts. I mean, what even is A Wrinkle in Time?
It's a lovely novel. It's the story of a young girl's struggle with the burden of leadership as she journeys through space.
Am I supposed to be the little girl?
I'm about to start this new coaching gig right here in the United Magical Kingdom, and I wouldn't mind getting a little mentoring from you. Let's just say this Karate Kid is looking for his own Mr. Miyagi. Oh, shoot, did I miss the halftime show? Gosh dang it, who'd they have? What was it, Bruno Mars, Coldplay? What was the entertainment?
Dad, I'm hanging up now.
If Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan can go through some heartfelt struggles and still end up happy, then so can we.
Do you remember what animal has the shortest memory?
The goldfish.
What do you think we should all do once we get done being sad?
I think we should all be a goldfish.
You watch Ted Lasso series, and I think each year, the second year, they've done 2. There's probably 8 or 9 episodes in each one of those. Everybody in that show, nonstop, continually, and they're super quick. And they're tiny little cultural gem references that they're dropping all the time. And they're historic. It'll be about music. It'll be about movies. It'll be about anything. And, they might be 2 or 3 words that you're just popping in here or there. But when you hear them, they tell you that the person is aware of the world, they're aware of history, and their intellect. They're telling you they're smart in a different sort of way. Bottom line for this is, at least for me, if someone's stupid, you can't teach them much. If someone's smart, you can improve them along the way. I know that's harsh, but, hey, that's the world we live in, really. The whole world is harsh at this point. Here's another one. As you're talking to them, does the person sound positive or negative about the world and music and just stuff? Hard thing to notice, but if you do, and it's negative, do you really want that person on the air? Do you want that person as part of your staff? Do you want a negative person around you? Unless they're amazingly good, which is probably not going to be the case. To me, I think it's just wiser to pass. Are they curious about things, about the world, about things that they don't know or just hear about? Huge trait, especially for talk show hosts or anyone on the air that you want to really perform versus reading, just doing liners and that type of stuff. Curiosity is amazing for a talk show host because that's a lot of it. You're interviewing people, you're talking to people. That's why Joe Rogan is so good, because the guy's curious. He walks in, as my understanding of it from all the things I've read and heard people talk about who have been on the show. He walks into the show every day and really only has a little bit of knowledge of who he's talking to and the subject matter. And then he's just continually peppering questions that are popping into his head because he's curious. That's fantastic for somebody who's on the air, which pretty much is what Rogan is. He's on the air. This is a big one, huge one, work ethic. This is huge. Are they going to do what you ask enthusiastically, or are they going to whine? They may do it, but it may be grudgingly. After a while, when you're somebody's boss who acts like that, it's just like pulling teeth. And what ends up happening is, so let's say you have 2 production people, okay? And you have one that you go to, and they're like, yeah, what do you need? I need this. Can you get it done? I know it's only 10 minutes to 5 and you're about to leave. Can you get this? Yeah, sure. I'll just stay until I get it done. No problem. It'll only take me about 20 minutes. Okay, cool. And then there's the other person where it's, hey, it's 10 minutes to 5. Can you get this done? Ah, man, I got to go to so-and-so. I got to be there at 5:15. And that's the standard answer all the time. And you know that they're lying to you. they don't have to go anywhere. And they'll stay and they'll do it, but they want you to know that you're putting them out. And for me, I'm going like, we're all in this together. Number one, I'm not putting you out because I'm trying to keep you with a job. I'm trying to keep you putting food on your table. Like, what do you give me the attitude for like that? Like, it's just, it's not right. And, so what ends up happening is you end up bringing more and more to the person who is just going along with it and is fine. And I'm not talking about this as a constant thing. I'm talking about this as every once in a while when you get in a bind and you need something done, you'll end up starting leaning on the one person, and the other person, the one who's always, got the grudge match going, they'll get mad or they'll get bent out of shape. Why are you always, leaning on so-and-so? How come you gave him tickets and you didn't give me? And at that point, I think you really need to just sort of tell them, this is why, because I don't like coming to you. You whine too much. What surprise skills do they have as you're interviewing them? You may think, okay, I'm just interviewing for a jock job, but they might surprise you like, wow, they can do a lot more stuff. And they have some great skills. Can they make and edit good video? That'd be a big one. I think that's a huge one right now. If you're a jock on the air or you're PD, you should know right this minute how to edit and make video. Doesn't have to be amazing, but you should have the basics of it and be able to do it. Audio production, I'm sure they can probably edit, because that kind of goes without saying almost with radio now, but can they actually do pretty decent audio production? Are they adept at social media? Like, really know how to manage social media, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube and that type of stuff, and other apps like that. Let me tell you a story. When I got into YouTube and doing these things, I didn't know very much about it. I watched it, but that's pretty much it. And, since then, I have taken some YouTube courses, online. I have read it incessantly about it. I've figured out how the algorithms work. I mean, there's like 25,000 levels of YouTube. I have a friend of mine, Marty Forbes, who knows Instagram inside and out. When I talk to Marty about Instagram, it's like I'm talking to somebody from another planet, because he is so far beyond me and knows the intricacies of Instagram that, I don't know, and I will never know. I don't have enough time to go into it like he does. So you may say, hey, are you good at social media? And they'll be going, yeah, absolutely. I'm great at social media. And you know what it might be? They have an Instagram account and they look at it. That may be, or a TikTok, and they look at some videos. But that may be the extent of what they know, which is basically nothing. Because that's something that can be taught to somebody probably in 10 minutes, how to do that part of it. But there's so much more if they really know social media. And lastly, which goes along with the video editing, I would say, hey, do you have a YouTube video account? Because what's that going to tell you? One, that they deal with YouTube. If they have a video account, that means they're uploading videos, which means they probably know how to make videos. And all of that, it all starts to fall in line that you have probably someone who can do video for you and knows a decent amount about it. So now let's go into some real specifics, not a whole lot, because a lot of for hiring jocks and news people is just simply listening to their work. But for me specifically, let's start with news. It's going to be shorter. News. Everything I just said, and I really like to go through their writing. Great news writers, man, they are worth their weight in gold, and they are rare. Does their copy come alive and hold your interest? Do they know how to choose stories that will actually be interesting versus just some boring, maybe it's a political story that no one is really going to care about, versus something else that's not political that everybody has an interest in? Do they know how to use common words that make the story cut through? Instead of somebody got beat up on the corner of blah, 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 instead of, well, there was an altercation at the corner of blah, 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 glazing over with the word altercation as opposed to real words. Can they get the meat of the story to a listener while editing? Let's move on to jocks. I try to avoid looking at the resume before I hear their air check. I like to take the appreciation of an air check pretty much like a song. If there's a new song by The Weeknd or Ed Sheeran, you're automatically going to be leaning towards it. It's fairly good before you even listen to it. That's what will be in the back of your mind. If you have no idea who's singing the song, you're much more critical. Your ear doesn't just give them a buy for things. So that's why I don't like to know, where they worked and everything. I'll give you maybe a different instance. Let's say you get an air check in and you listen to it and you go like, ooh, This person is giving me an air check, and they are on WCBS FM in New York. Now, I may listen to that and go, wow, they may be one of the regular people, or it could be a weekend person. It could be somebody who they filled in because somebody else was sick and they only did one show. It could be somebody who got fired from there. You know, all of that would run through my head because I don't know that much about them. Now, if I got something in and I'm looking at the resume and it says, worked WCBS FM, night show, 7 years, I'm going to sort of lean toward assuming that they're pretty good, when in reality they may not be. Here's another one that I used to do and I would still do. If someone is in the running for the job, ask them for a 2-hour show, unscoped, the whole 2 hours with music, and also scoped, so you don't have to go through the, listening to the whole thing. You can listen to the cut-up air check, but then you have the full one, so it can't be tampered with. You know it, and they know it. Here's another one, which I think is really, really important, and it's probably odd to do, but I would have the potential jock have them send you 15 of what they consider to be their best breaks, ones that they're happy with, ones that they really like, ones that they've done and they're proud of. This shows you what their natural style is, what they'll probably do best if just left alone. You want a jock that can be left alone. And if they can't give you 15 great breaks to them, that's a problem. Also, if all the breaks are recent, that'll probably mean that they don't really air check themselves much, if at all. And they're likely not a student of the business. Just that simple thing of asking for, 15 really good breaks that they like, not that you're going to like, but that they like, it tells an awful lot about, the person that's looking for the job. So those are the things that I would do, and I'm sure there's a ton more, but to me, those are the sort of the major ones, and probably a little bit odd, which I think are good, because you want odd, because, everybody does the same thing. You want to be doing the same things, and some more to actually dig to find out how good somebody is. So somewhere down the road, I'll actually do the basic, the real normal that you'd get in business school, or that everybody tells you what to do for hiring, and they're worthwhile. I just didn't want to waste the time on them here. I'll do it in a different lesson. Hope you like this lesson. As always, subscribe, hit the like button, and do the notifications. I can't remember, but I think we're almost at 440 subscribers, 437, 438, somewhere in there. Maybe even higher by the time you actually see this one. But we're trying to get to 450, which will be a nice little benchmark. And then after that, 500. Keeps climbing every week by 2, 3, 4 people. It's kind of cool. Getting more and more PDs watching the course, which hopefully that means that I'm doing a decent job on this. So until we see you on the next lesson, see ya.